In the early 1980s, millions of perfectly good cars were being scrapped. Not because their engines were dead, not because their transmissions failed, not because they were rusted beyond repair. They were being destroyed because of one tiny component that cost less than $5 to replace, but nobody knew how to fix it. Mechanics told owners their cars were totaled. Dealerships recommended scrapping them and buying new vehicles. And the junkyards were flooded with cars that had one minor problem that seemed impossible to solve. Until one brilliant engineer figured out the fix. A solution so simple, so cheap, so obvious that it seemed like a miracle. And overnight, millions of cars that were headed to the crusher got a second life. This $5 fix became legendary among mechanics, saved the used car market from collapse, and proved that sometimes the biggest problems have the simplest solutions. Today, we're revealing the story of the $5 fix that saved millions of old cars from the scrapyard, and why the automotive industry hated that this solution existed. The crisis. Cars were dying early. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, American roads were filled with dying cars. Perfectly maintained vehicles with low mileage were experiencing catastrophic failures that made them undrivable. The symptoms were terrifying for owners. Cars would run fine for months, then suddenly start running rough. The engine would stumble and hesitate. Power would drop dramatically. The car would barely idle and would stall at stoplights. Mechanics would hook up their diagnostic equipment and find nothing wrong. Compression was good, timing was correct, fuel pressure was normal, but the car still ran like garbage. So mechanics started replacing everything. New carburetor, new distributor, new ignition components, new fuel pump, and nothing worked. The car still ran terrible. Dealerships told owners the engine was shot and needed a complete rebuild costing thousands of dollars. Many owners, facing a repair bill that exceeded the car's value, just scrapped them. Junkyards were overflowing with cars from the late 70s and early 80s that ran terrible and couldn't be fixed. It was a crisis that was destroying the used car market and forcing people to buy new cars they couldn't afford. And the cause? A $5 component that nobody understood was failing. The component? Catalytic converter collapse. The culprit was the catalytic converter, and specifically the ceramic honeycomb structure inside it. Starting in 1975, federal emissions regulations required catalytic converters on all new cars sold in the United States. This was brand new technology that automakers were forced to adopt quickly. The catalytic converter uses precious metals, platinum, palladium, and rhodium, coated on a ceramic honeycomb structure to convert harmful exhaust gases into less toxic emissions. It's brilliant engineering when it works. But in the early years, they didn't work reliably. The ceramic honeycomb was fragile. It would crack from thermal stress, vibration, or impact from road debris. When it cracked, pieces would break off and partially block the exhaust flow. This created massive back pressure that choked the engine. The car would run rich because exhaust gases couldn't escape properly. Power would drop because the engine was fighting against blocked exhaust. And the symptoms were identical to dozens of other problems, making diagnosis nearly impossible with the primitive diagnostic tools available in the early 80s. Mechanics didn't understand catalytic converters yet. They were trained on carburetors, distributors, and mechanical systems. This new emissions equipment was foreign to them. So when a car came in running terrible, they diagnosed everything they knew and missed the one thing that was actually broken. The discovery. One smart mechanic. The breakthrough came from mechanics working at independent shops who were seeing dozens of these mysterious failures. They noticed a pattern. Cars that ran terrible often had recent exhaust work or had hit something in the road. One particularly observant mechanic in California started suspecting the catalytic converter. He cut one open from a car that was unfixable and found the ceramic honeycomb had shattered into pieces, creating a blockage. He replaced just the catalytic converter, and the car ran perfectly. He'd found the problem. Word spread through the independent mechanic community like wildfire. Cut out the bad catalytic converter, replace it with a new one, and the car runs like new again. The part cost maybe $50 to $100 wholesale, and the labor was simple, just exhaust work. Total cost to the customer? Around $150 to $200. Compare that to the thousands dealers were quoting for engine rebuilds, or the scrap value owners were getting at junkyards. This was a miracle fix. But here's where it gets interesting. Some mechanics discovered an even cheaper solution, the straight pipe replacement. They'd cut out the failed catalytic converter and replace it with a simple straight pipe, bypassing the emissions equipment entirely. Cost? About $5 for the pipe plus an hour of labor. The car would run perfectly, though it now failed emissions testing and was technically illegal in states with emissions inspections. The industry response: anger and resistance. The automotive industry's response to this discovery was fury. Dealerships hated it because they'd been making thousands on misdiagnoses and unnecessary engine work. They'd been telling customers their cars needed rebuilds when they really just needed a $100 catalytic converter replacement. Now customers were going to independent mechanics who could fix the problem for a fraction of the cost. Auto manufacturers were furious because the catalytic converter failures exposed how poorly designed the early systems were. They'd rushed the technology to market to meet federal regulations without adequate testing or durability engineering. Now they looked incompetent. Parts suppliers who'd sold thousands of unnecessary carburetors, distributors, and ignition components were losing revenue as mechanics stopped replacing parts that weren't actually broken. The entire service industry had been profiting from confusion and misdiagnosis, and this simple fix destroyed that revenue stream. Emissions equipment manufacturers fought back by lobbying for stricter laws against tampering with emissions equipment. They pushed for higher penalties for removing catalytic converters. They convinced some states to implement more rigorous emissions testing that would catch bypass converters. But the independent mechanics had already saved millions of cars, and the knowledge was out there. The impact. Saving the used car market. The catalytic converter fix had massive implications for the used car market. Suddenly, cars from the late 70s and early 80s that had been considered worthless became valuable again. A 1978 Chevrolet Malibu that was headed to the scrapyard because it ran terrible and couldn't be fixed could be saved with a $150 repair. That car could run for another 100,000 miles easily. Multiply that by millions of vehicles, and you understand the scale of the impact. The used car market stabilized. Prices for 70s and early 80s cars increased because buyers knew these mysterious unfixable problems were actually cheap to repair. Independent mechanics became heroes to car owners who'd been told by dealerships their vehicles were dead. Word of mouth was explosive. People told their friends and family about the miracle fix that saved their car from the crusher. Consumer trust in dealership service departments collapsed. Once people realized dealers had been misdiagnosing problems and recommending unnecessary repairs, they stopped trusting them entirely. This accelerated the growth of independent repair shops and chain service centers that offered more honest diagnostics. The $5 fix, or the $100 proper catalytic converter replacement, became legendary in automotive circles. It was the story mechanics told to explain why you should never trust the first diagnosis, and why simple problems often get misdiagnosed as catastrophic failures. The technical truth. Why it failed. The early catalytic converters failed for several engineering reasons that manufacturers eventually fixed. First, the ceramic honeycomb substrate was too fragile. It couldn't handle thermal cycling from cold starts to operating temperature without cracking. Later designs used more durable ceramic formulations that resisted thermal stress. Second, the mounting system was inadequate. Early converters weren't properly isolated from vibration, so road impacts and engine vibration would crack the ceramic. Later designs added better cushioning and mounting systems. Third, the catalyst coating chemistry was primitive. Early converters used coating formulas that degraded quickly, reducing efficiency and causing the substrate to overheat and crack. Later converters used more stable catalyst formulations. Fourth, placement was wrong on many early designs. Converters mounted too close to the engine overheated. Converters mounted too far away didn't reach operating temperature efficiently. Manufacturers learned optimal placement through trial and error. By the mid-1980s, catalytic converter technology had matured. Failure rates dropped dramatically. The converters became durable enough to last 100,000 plus miles without issues. Modern converters routinely last 200,000 miles or more because the engineering problems were solved. But those early failures created a crisis that nearly destroyed millions of perfectly good cars before the simple fix was discovered. The legacy, a lesson in simplicity. The catalytic converter crisis taught several important lessons that still apply today. First, complex systems create diagnostic challenges that lead to misdiagnosis. When new technology is introduced, mechanics need proper training and diagnostic tools to understand it. Second, simple fixes often solve seemingly complicated problems. Before replacing expensive components, check the basics first. Third, manufacturer incentives don't align with customer interests. Dealers profit from expensive repairs, so they have no motivation to find cheap solutions. Fourth, independent mechanics often provide better service because their reputation depends on customer satisfaction, not maximizing service revenue. Fifth, knowledge is power. The more car owners understand about their vehicles, the less likely they are to be ripped off by dishonest service providers. The $5 fix became a symbol of these lessons. It represented the difference between honest diagnosis and profitable misdiagnosis. It showed that sometimes the automotive industry wants problems to seem complicated because complexity generates revenue. Today, the lesson is more relevant than ever. Modern cars have complex emission systems, turbos, direct injection, and dozens of sensors that can fail. Dealers still misdiagnose problems and recommend expensive repairs when cheap fixes would work. The battle between honest service and profitable service continues. And that's the story of how a $5 fix saved millions of old cars from the scrapyard. The catalytic converter crisis of the early 80s proved that sometimes the simplest solution is the right one, and it exposed how the service industry profits from customer ignorance. If this story made you question every diagnosis you've ever received, smash that like button and drop a comment. Have you ever been told your car was unfixable only to discover a simple solution? And if you want more automotive more Xpert of industry practices, and more stories about the fixes that changed everything, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because Garage History is fighting for honest information in a world of profitable lies. Thanks for watching, and remember, always get a second opinion, and never underestimate the power of a simple fix. Until next time, stay skeptical and keep the history alive.